The date is January 15. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher TUFTON, on Tuesday disclosed that a total of 25,400 doses of trivalent influenza vaccine have been distributed through the Regional Health Authority network. Speaking in the House of Representatives, Dr. TUFTON said 2,370 doses of the vaccine were administered in November and December 2019, based on preliminary reports from the National Epidemiology Database.
The ministry confirms that 2 strains of flu are currently circulating in Jamaica: influenza AH3N2 and influenza AH1N1, pandemic 09. In addition to the health promotion thrust at all levels, Mr. Speaker, the ministry has made several available the flu vaccine free of cost in the public health system to high-risk members of the population, including healthcare workers, children and the elderly with chronic illnesses, pregnant women, individuals who are institutionalized or in state care.
Dr. TUFTON told the House that 2019 data from the ministry shows that people 60 years and older who are among the high-risk groups are being severely affected. He noted that between January and June 2019, there were 6 deaths from the flu-influenza A pandemic, which is one of the 2 strains of the flu currently circulating the island.
I encourage private healthcare providers to procure the influenza vaccine through private distributors in order to provide for the general population. Mr. Speaker, vaccination for influenza is recommended annually before the start of the flu season. I wish to remind members of this Honorable House and members of the public to practice good hygiene, including washing hands with soap and water, yes, basic but important, and covering the mouth and nose while coughing or sneezing, which will help to prevent the transmission of the virus.
A 20 to 25 bed ward will be built at the BUSTAMANTE Hospital for Children in Kingston. Construction is set to commence this year. The 2-story structure will house the hospital's pediatric cardiac center patients and an 18-bed overnight facility for parents of patients in the ward. The infrastructure development project, valued at $100 million, is being jointly financed by the National Health Fund, which has donated $40 million, and the National Housing Trust, $60 million. During a recent tour of the hospital's pediatric cardiac center, the Health and Wellness Minister noted that construction of the new drug serve pharmacy on the site is part of improvements being made at the health facility. The pharmacy is to be constructed at a cost of more than $50 million, with funds provided by the NHF. Jamaica Public Service power issues are being blamed for the BOGUE treatment plant and White River facility in St. Ann being out of operation. The National Water Commission says affected areas include Ocherias and surroundings, Content Gardens, Exchange, Bunham Spring, Eltham, St. Anne's Bay, Windsor Heights, Maumee Bay, Stairtown, Port Maria, Trinity, Hamilton Mountain, White River, Galena, Exchange, Lodge, and Upton. NWC says the matter has been reported to JPS and is assuring customers that full operations will resume as soon as the matter is resolved. Jamaica has now moved on to phase 2 of the ban on plastics by restricting the manufacturing and distribution of styrofoam products in the food and beverage industry, and work is being done on a smooth transition from the use of polystyrene products to the alternatives on the market. That was the focus of Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Darrell Vaz's address in Parliament on Tuesday. He recalled that the plastic ban was announced in September 2018 and the ban on styrofoam products came into effect in January 2020. He noted that one of the concerns was that alternatives would not be available in quantities to support the policy ban. However, the market had responded with a variety of reusable bags, containers and paper straws, making the transition easier.
Mr. Speaker, the government is extremely pleased with the overwhelming positive reaction, national reaction and response to the policy announcement. The support is estimated at over 90% coming from the sector groups, other stakeholders and consumers in general. Clear evidence of the positive response is the rapid disappearance of single-use plastic bags and plastic straws from the trade and the pronounced behavior change and attitude coming from the Jamaican people. I wish to pause to congratulate all of Jamaica for the support and buy-in to this well-needed environmental policy.
The ban is but one measure to safeguard the nation's natural and built environments. Vaz said that while prosecution is never the preferred strategy, the government saw the need to put in place fines for those who are non-compliant and to ensure that the legislative backing is in place.
The maximum fine under the Trade Act is $2 million, while under the NRCA Order 2018, the fine is $50,000. Both carry a term of imprisonment of 2 years, respectively. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, to date, 6 businesses have been fined under the NRCA Plastic Packaging Materials Prohibition Order, and another 30 business persons and individuals will also be charged and face the court in the coming weeks. Warning notices have also been issued to non-compliant persons and companies before enforcement action was taken. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate, the government will be taking strong enforcement action against those persons and companies that do not comply with the ban.
Both orders carry a term of imprisonment of 2 years. Meanwhile, Vaz said since the ban, the country has witnessed a pronounced reduction of plastics in the terrestrial and marine environment. Tuesday's sitting of the Public Affairs Committee, PAC, saw Southwest St. Catherine Member of Parliament Everald Warmington challenging Auditor General Pamela Monroe-Ellis's report on the rehabilitation of farm roads. The report noted several inconsistencies in how the program was managed by the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA. However, Mr. Warmington argued that some of the responses from RADA to the Auditor General were ignored.
Is this report included the concerns that you had? Or your responses to the concern?
Not all, member.
They weren't?
Not all.
So this came to us just as it was sent to you then?
No, he said not all.
Well, but part of this then, it came to the House ignoring your responses to the questions asked.
Mr. Warmington.
And whereby, no. Look, hear me. If RADA responded to the draft, responding correct in the best of their view or their knowledge and understanding, they responded to the draft and their concern. Yet, what is saying that not all of these capture their concern. It means that this was written ignoring entirely or the entire response from RADA.
Not entirely. He said not all.
Right, so I say part of it has been ignored then.
Perhaps.
Why has this happened? And why ask the question?
Yes.
This is not the first that I've seen this and hear a complaint from different agencies that appear before this committee, that their concerns were never taken into consideration when the Auditor General writing the report. So my question, are these reports being written for sensational purposes or to capture public knowledge or to what have you?
These claims were challenged by Central Manchester MP Peter Bunting.
Responses received from RADA have been considered while preparing this report and have been included where relevant. Now, the only person's judgment as to what is relevant or not relevant to be included in the report is the Auditor General, not Member Warmington. It's her report.
Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis questioned RADA's CEO Peter Thompson as to whether he responded to the Auditor General's draft.
The first draft would have taken into consideration whatever evidence you would have provided along with your first draft. Do you recall that, Mr. Thompson?
No.
You don't recall receiving any of the drafts that you responded to?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Well, Mr. Chairman, the CEO responded. I don't know what he has a copy of, but I know what he responded to, and he responded to both drafts.
Mrs. Monroe Ellis's report stated that RADA could not readily distinguish between farm roads and the parochial roads managed by municipal corporations. However, RADA CEO Peter Thompson told the PAC this was not the case. Government MPs Juliet Cuthbert Flynn acknowledged being familiar with the system.
What I'm hearing, yes, I heard what the Auditor General said, but I can say possibly yes that the criteria was in place because West Rural St. Andrew, I know that I've been turned down because they said it was not a farm road but a parochial road and gave me the criteria. And this was not just now, this was a couple of years back to say I did not fit, or that particular road did not fit the criteria, and was told what the criteria was.
However, Mrs. Monroe Ellis says no such evidence was provided to her.
It is not sufficient to say what practice should be in place. The information must be presented. I have both responses here. You probably could ask RADA, the representatives, to provide you with the responses that were submitted in support of the drafts that were provided. But I'm sure I heard Mr. Thompson said just now that he did not agree with a comment, but I am not seeing that here either, that there was any disagreement with the audit findings.
Gender Minister Olivia Grange has condemned recent attacks on women in the society. She addressed the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
As Minister with the portfolio of gender affairs, to join with all well-thinking Jamaicans to condemn and speak out against the recent brutal acts of violence against women, which are part of the horrific monster of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence can be perpetuated in many forms, such as psychological, physical, sexual, and economic. It is a reflection of the culture of violence and silence, and is reinforced by various structural and systemic inequalities in the home, in socio-economic systems, and systems of justice.
The minister says that productive women and girls are the backbone of our society.
I join with my fellow Jamaicans to express outrage that there are misguided persons who believe that the lives of our women can be arbitrarily snatched away just like that. These killings reinforce the need for more sensitization on the ground as to why there is no excuse for abuse.
Her appeal and condemnation comes as the country grapples with a swath of recent domestic murders perpetuated by men on women. The spirit of unity was high in Gordon House on Tuesday as members of Parliament on both sides of the House spoke out against their salaries, pension and constituency funding. Neither Prime Minister Andrew Holness nor Opposition Leader Dr. Peter Phillips were present during a question and answer session involving Minister of Finance and the Public Service Dr. Nigel Clark and Opposition MP Ronald Thwaites over pension arrangements for parliamentarians.
Mr. Speaker, it is unjust for us to treat ourselves this way, and it is unjust for the public to expect that the persons who serve here, many of them at great sacrifice, all of them at great sacrifice, should be made paupers in our subsequent iterations of life, dependent upon our families, trying to restore lost earnings. Thankless in all respects.
Longtime Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Northwestern Robert Pickersgill blasted the continued reluctance to give MPs more pay.
Although I have not publicly commented on the salaries, pensions, or health benefits, I have, over my 7 terms in this Honourable House, had discussions with several of my colleagues on these matters, including my good friend, the representative from Central Clarendon, and he has a very interesting proposal. I don't know if he's going to make it today. The Prime Minister, who I do not regard as the de jure, but rather our de facto union leader for all parliamentarians. And as I said to you, Minister, you would be the General Secretary in your capacity as Minister of Finance. We have no representation, none.
The opposition MP, a lawyer, confessed that entering Parliament in 1993, he did not consider the salary paid to the MPs until he learned from legal colleagues that a single legal opinion could be twice an MP's annual salary.
When I became member here, I didn't know what the salary was, you know. For a couple of months, I was really dealing with what I was earning as a lawyer. When I heard that the salary was, I nearly died. Chicken feed, of course.
He noted that the debate on the issue of MPs' salaries dated as far back as 1945. According to Dr. Pickersgill, the basic pay for the average cabinet minister is some $5.6 million per year, which is some 40% less than that paid to cabinet ministers in Barbados. And the salary of the Barbadian Prime Minister is twice that of his Jamaican counterpart, despite the vast difference in population. Councillors of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, are calling for additional funding and a direct role in overseeing any activities aimed at ridding areas of mosquito breeding sites. The concerns were highlighted during the debate at a recent meeting on the resolution which called for an enhanced public education program, as well as a massive solid waste campaign, among other things. The resolution, which was passed, was brought by Councillor for the Trenchtown Division and seconded by Councillor for the Waterhouse Division, Byron Clark. Last November, Minister of Health and Wellness told Parliament that the Cabinet had approved $1 billion over the next 3 months to enhance the vector control program. In other news from the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, the councillors have ratified the conferment of the keys of the city to Kingston on Miss World 2019 Tony Ann Singh. The resolution was passed on January 14 during a meeting of the corporation in downtown Kingston. Ms. Singh was presented with the keys during a cultural tribute held in her honor at the Emancipation Park in St. Andrew on Saturday, December 21, during her homecoming celebrations. The resolution further said that Ms. Singh brought immense joy and happiness to the people of Jamaica and the Jamaican diaspora on winning the Miss World 2019 title. Ms. Singh is the 4th Jamaican to take the Miss World title. And Government Senator Matthew SAMUDA has joined the list of outstanding Jamaican participants on the prestigious European Union Visitors Program that assembles young global leaders in Europe yearly for political and knowledge exchanges. SAMUDA, a strong advocate on environmental sustainability, is one of the key proponents for Jamaica's recent progressive steps to curb plastic use in the country. The EUVP is an initiative of the European Parliament and the European Commission that invites promising young leaders and opinion shapers from countries outside the European Union to visit EU institutions to gain a first-hand appreciation of the EU and how it works. The program will run from January 13 to January 17, mostly in Brussels, Belgium, and the heart of the EU politics. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions will soon have a social media policy to guide their use of platforms. Director of Public Prosecutions DPP Paula Llewellyn wrote to her staff regarding the advisory. The development follows public criticisms of one of her deputies, Adley Duncan, over a series of controversial posts he made on Twitter following a burglary at his home. The DPP, in her two-page memorandum, did not name Duncan, but cited, quote, recent events, end quote, which she said would not be, quote, particularized, end quote. Duncan tweeted that he was naked at the time and immediately pulled on a pair of pants before dashing outside when he realized he was being robbed. In the memorandum dated January 13, the DPP explained that given the high public office she holds, years ago she made the decision not to engage in the social media space. Llewellyn's memo stated that the policy to be drafted will be binding on all staff, and her hope is that it will provide some guidance. The US dollar is being traded at Jamaican $137.01, up by 55 cents. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily exchange trading summary. The Canadian dollar is being traded at $103.66, up from $101.84. While the British pound sterling is being traded at $176.61, up from $173.27. In regional news, hazardous sea advisories have been issued across the Caribbean following days of strong wind from a high-pressure system over the Atlantic Ocean. Small boat operators and beachgoers are advised to exercise caution in and around the sea because of the rough surf. In Antigua and Barbuda, the Anthem of the Seas, Norwegian Dawn and Crown Princess aborted docking at the St. John's Harbour due to the rough seas. The ferry service between Antigua and Montserrat has been cancelled until Thursday. The high winds have downed trees in the Windward Islands and Trinidad and Tobago and caused a power outage in the British Virgin Islands. These conditions are expected to continue until Thursday. We go now to Dominica, where newly elected Member of Parliament for the ROSEAU Central constituency, Melissa Skerritt, helped to facilitate the presentation of a development plan for the area on Monday.
In keeping with the government's vision of a dynamic Dominica, we will focus on 5 key areas: the aesthetics and recreation, business development and job creation, parking improvement and relieving congestion, upgrading infrastructure, and making ROSEAU more accessible and inclusive.
Mrs. Skerritt says the plan will present a coherent political vision of how the physical environment can be gradually improved over the next 15 years. The plan will also be, among other things, recommended to strengthen the tourism assets of ROSEAU. In sports, we bowl off with cricket. The West Indies are seeking to build on their 3-0 win over Ireland when they meet in the first of 3 2020 internationals on Wednesday in Grenada. This after wrapping up their first one-day international series victory in the Caribbean since 2014 recently. The West Indies are desperate for a T20 series win, having just 6 in their last 16 since their 2016 ICC T20 World Cup triumph. And in athletics, Trinidad and Tobago's Olympic sprinter Michelle Lee Ayi has been banned for 2 years for a whereabouts rule violation. According to RJR reports, Ayi, who was 6th in both the 100 meters and 200 meters at the 2016 Rio Olympics and again 6th in the 100 meters at the 2017 IAAF World Championships in London, is suspended until April 2021, meaning she will miss this year's Tokyo Olympics. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.